It's music theory. Online, let's learn some theory. Online, by watching modules. Online, with music theory. Online.
Welcome to Module 22. We're going to work today on analysis and on melody writing. Analysis is simply taking a piece of music and analyzing it. The things that you'll be asked about the music are things like naming the composer. You may be asked to give the title of the piece, to name the key of the piece, identify and give the meaning of terms and signs, identifying intervals and triads, identify notation markings like slurs or formatas, all of that kind of thing. So here's an example of the sorts of things that you would be looking at. This etude, you see it has an A and then it says andante. So you would be writing, what does that mean? Andante means at a walking pace. Do you see where the B is? And it says P for piano. So you would say quiet. C is a crescendo, so you'd be saying gradually louder. D is a decrescendo, which is gradually softer. On the second etude example, it's marked up a little bit more with some of the other answers that you might have to come up with. For example, what is the key signature? The key signature is 1 flat. What two keys can have this signature? F major and D minor. So what is the key of this piece? It's F major, because in the bass clef it's beginning with an F major triad and it's ending on F with an F major triad. What's the title of the piece? Etude. Who's the composer? Müller. So you see all of that's written down. Do you see some of the other questions would involve some of the things that are circled? You may be asked to find and circle a tonic triad. A tonic triad in F major would be an F major triad. So you can see that that's circled in the second measure. And then right after that, what's circled is a harmonic major third. You can see the middle C in the last measure of that first line is circled because the student was asked to find a ledger line. In the second line, you can see where the whole tone is circled, so they were asked to find a whole tone. You can see the word slur is written above the slur, so they were asked to find a slur. In the next measure, there's a melodic minor second that's circled. In the bass clef, there's a dominant triad that's circled. Is the dominant triad in F major would be a C major triad. At the end, there's an eighth rest that's been circled. So the analysis questions are really pulling together everything that you've learned through all of these modules and putting it in the context of real music. We're going to move on to melody writing next. This is where you get to be creative. This can be really, really fun. Always play what you write. What you want to be able to do is develop your ear to the point that what you write, your ear can hear without actually playing the piano. In order to be able to do that, you want to play everything that you write so that you start to see the relationship between what you write and what it sounds like. When you're writing melodies, you want to combine the shape with rhythm. One of the ways of developing shape is with stepwise motion. You can move by step up or down a scale. And here's an example of stepwise motion in a melody. It certainly isn't boring, and the reason it isn't boring is because the rhythm is really interesting. You can also have leaps. That means that you're going to move by the interval of a third or larger. When you do leaps, it's best if it can outline a triad. So we have this little Haydn that sounds like this. So the beginning with these leaps here, those leaps are making the G major triad. The next measure, they're all notes of the G major triad, which is why it sounds so nice. You can also use repetition. That means you're just repeating the same notes on the same pitch. If you use repetition, what comes into play is the rhythm. You'll need a rhythm if you're using repetition. And here's an example I'll play for you. So there we have repetition. Most good melodies are going to combine steps, leaps, and repetition. For example, O Canada. So we're starting with the leap. This is written in the key of E flat major, and our first 1, 2, 3, 4 notes, which are all leaps except for one repetition, is outlining our tonic triad. Then we have stepwise, and then we have a leap. The next example with that combination of steps, leaps, and repeated notes is this. So we have repetition, leaps, but the leaps are outlining our tonic triad. Repeat, step, leap, leap, it's outlining a triad, step, step, leap, leap. Rhythm is really important when you're melody writing. Without rhythm, your melodies can be really, really boring. Here we have no rhythm. It's pretty boring. Then when you add some eighth notes to make it a little more interesting, it sounds like this. Completely transforms the melody. Take one simple rhythmic pattern and reuse it. In this case, we have ta, ti, ti, ta, ti, ti, that kind of thing, ta, ti, tis. Most melodies only use very few different patterns. If you add too many different patterns rhythmically, it gets too fragmented and it doesn't sound like it's together at all. So you don't want to use a lot of new rhythms. Now, what makes good rhythms is things like combining unity and variety, and that's really hard to get that balance. Normally, rhythms have a question, and that's the opening phrase, with the answer being the next phrase. If you borrow melodic and rhythmic ideas from the question, then your answer is going to have some form of unity because it'll tie in to what you did in the question. Avoid introducing too many new ideas. If you have one new idea you want to add, that's enough. Always, 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 always end on the tonic note and make sure that the second last note is either the 7th degree or the 2nd degree of the scale. End the melody on the first beat of the final bar. That means that sometimes your last note, which is going to be the tonic, may be a great big whole note or a half note dot. Here we have examples of some answers to the question. Now here's the question. That's the question. I'm going to play the question and then the answer, and we can discuss a little bit about what worked and what didn't. Question. Answer. It's a little boring rhythmically. Good as far as the melody goes, but imagine if you had just added a dotted note. It would sound like this. Would have been much more exciting than just having 3/4 notes. The next one. Question. Answer. Isn't that nice? It has the dotted note, which made it interesting. Notice that they're ending with a dotted half note. The last note is on the strong part of the beat, and it covers the whole last measure. That was a really nice answer. Here's the question. Answer. It's a little bit too repetitious of the question. It has exactly the same rhythm, the ta, ti, 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 ti. It's a little bit boring. There's very little change. Okay, next one. The melody's a little boring when you repeat the same note 3 times and then go down to F. Also, remember how it's best to have the second last note being the 2nd degree or the 7th degree. So it's a little bit too boring. Next one. Again, it's really has a nice melodic shape. It has nice rhythm, and it has 7 going to 1. The 7th degree of the scale going to 1, which is a really nice ending. Okay, and the last one. Ew! There was just way too much going on there, and it didn't really relate at all to our question, and we need to end with that dotted half note. So your challenge is to get the balance between unity and variety, and make sure you know where that last note is going to go. It's going to go on the strong part of the beat. Also, it's best if you go from the 7th note to the tonic, or the leading note to the tonic. So this week you have lots of analysis to do, and you have melody writing to do. We've covered all of the material for this level. Isn't that fantastic? So those of you that are doing exams, you can start working on those sample exam papers. It's been wonderful working with everybody, and we will be continuing along in the next modules, building on what we've covered in Theory 1.
It's music theory. Online, let's learn some theory. Online, by watching modules. Online, with music theory. Online.